What is up, everyone? I'm Anphans, and today we're gonna be taking a look at Blokees Galaxy version Volume 12 Ultraman the Next Anphans. Now, before we get into the review proper, I wanna point out that between my last Blokees review and this one, Blokees have improved a lot, and dare I say, are giving a run for Bandai's Chodo line. But we'll get into that later. Now, unlike the previous Blokees figures which I've taken a look at, and the reviews should be in the description, you should check those out, thank you very much. This line actually uses a different sort of joint system. Now, it's kind of obvious that this design here for Ultraman the Next uses armor bits, as you can see from the back. We can take those out because they clip onto the body. It's very simple. So here is the frame, and I guess you can say this is a frame because we put armor bits on top of it later. Now, as you can see, this thing has improved a lot. Now, first of all, we have this extending joint for the chest section, which gives you a lot of range of motion. The feet also allow for some double jointed knees, which is not present in the previous ones, but we'll take a look at that later. There's also a thigh swivel, which is very interesting because, again, this is improved. Now, let's put on these armor bits back on. Now, here it is all armored up. Well, put on the armor back, that is. Now, if you guys don't know who Ultraman the Next is, this is Noah's or Nexus' most devolved form, and it comes from the movie Ultraman the Next, released in 2004. If you haven't watched this movie, I highly recommend it. It's one of the greatest Ultraman movies ever made. And it's also a prequel to the Ultraman Nexus series, so there's also that. It gives you a lot of context. The design of the Next, especially in Anphans, is so rough and in a good way because this is how it's supposed to look like in the context of that movie. And Blokees have done a perfect job at replicating this one-to-one. Now, if you compare this to the other Blokees figures, of course it's going to be very much detailed because most of it is raised detail compared to the printing. Now let's just skip into the articulation. The head can move up and down on a very nice joint. It can also look left to right all the way around. The shoulders can move around like so, they can move out, and thanks to the extra joint in the shoulder pads, it also moves in tandem. The bend at the elbow is present, but it is limited due to the armor on the wrist. You can rotate it. You can also move the armor if you want. The wrists are on ball joints, unlike previous Blokees which has peg joints. So if you want to make this compatible, it's kind of hard to do. Again, like I said, the chest section can extend and allows you for some ab crunch and arcing back. Also allows for a bit rotation, but it's kind of limited. The waist can rotate. The legs can kick forward and they can kick back very well. They can also move outwards, but this is where the issues come. This makes the armor pop off. Now, it's not a big issue, you can get a way around it. And once you put back into the default position, the legs can look a bit separated at first, but just push them back in and you should be fine. Again, like I said, there is a double jointed knee, and comparing this to the Blokees back then, yeah, this is a very much needed improvement. Again, also like I said, thigh swivel is also present. The feet can move up and down, pivot and rotate, and that's much it for the articulation section. Now, there is a bit of things that I forgot to mention in the previous Blokees reviews. Now, of course, this comes with a stand. Of course, all Blokees come with a stand, and you can clip this on with a little bit of a peg that sticks out from the clip. You're supposed to put that resting on the figure itself. Of course, once you get into the air, you can have some pretty much dynamic poses. That's not to say it can't pose on the ground. As you can see here, it's very much well posed because the frame itself is very much posable. Also, you can put it into a flying pose, although Anphans never really did fly in the movie. It was Junus. I really want Junus form now that I say it. Also, you do get some chopping hands. Alternative hands is always a welcome. And the base here, you can store the hands there, which I did not mention in the previous reviews. And that's about it for accessories. Now, here's a few comparisons with other things I have on my table which is available, especially with the Blokees and Chodo line. You can kind of see it's not that big. It is to scale with its own subline, but it's not to scale with, say, Chodo, not to scale with the Transformers Blokees, but it is in scale with its own line. Now, I'll just get into my final thoughts. Should you buy this figure? Well, here's a bit of a catch. This thing is relying heavily on blind box luck. What this means is that compared to the other figures you can just buy out of store, Blokees unfortunately uses the gacha system. Now, if you don't know what gacha system is, what you may get is not the thing you like or not the thing you want. I happen to get Anphans out of pure luck. So imagine that when you want to target something else. That's why Blokees, the downside of Blokees in this line in particular is that, well, it uses luck. It's luck based. But Blokees' other products, they're available and they're not blind boxes. So if you really want to, I guess you can spend a lot more on getting the figure that you want. It is a bit more expensive because you're actually getting the things you want compared to like relying on blind box, which is much more cheaper. But hey, that's me. Do I recommend Blokees? Hell yeah! The new line here is pretty much very poseable and I much recommend it. Unlike back then, my opinions were a bit mixed on whether I should or should not recommend this. But now, after having the next and its fully articulated figure, frame, you want to say it, I can definitely agree that yes, you should buy this, especially lines 9 and beyond. Lines below that is a bit of a lackluster experience because it is new, but the newer lines, hell yeah, go for them if you are really into this kind of figures. Anyway, that's been all from me. Stick around for more reviews coming up in the future. I have been Anphans, and I'll see you all next time. Take care, everyone.